Hello everyone. I am Dr. Amol Deshmukh from the University of Glasgow, from the Institute of Neuroscience and Psychology. I am delighted to be a part of this workshop and presenting my work on human-robot interactions with rural population in developing countries. So my background is in electronics, computer science, and I'm currently working in the psychology department. And my key research interest is human robot interaction, social signal processing, non-verbal behavior generation for social robots, especially applying user-centric methodologies and machine learning. So I've been involved with working with a variety of different projects over the years. For example, looking at office robots who can act as an assistant or provide guidance to people inside an office environment. Child robot interaction. So, looking at how robotic tutors can enhance the learning experience for children in schools. In shopping malls, for example, how robots can provide an engaging and entertaining experience to visitors in a shopping mall. And more recently, my work with in the wild with rural subjects, which I will be talking more about in this presentation. So, human robot interaction in a nutshell is understanding, designing, and evaluating robotic systems for humans. However, human robot interaction research is predominantly carried out with urban populations in developed countries and mostly in lab environments where student participants are recruited. What we have seen is people normally build mental models and expectations about robots because of their exposure to media and interaction with technology, which has been dramatically very dynamic in the last 10 years. But on the flip side, rural populations in developing countries have limited exposure to different types of technologies because of their geographically remote location and reduced economic background. There is also a huge disparity in regard to how much human robot interaction research has been done in developing countries. There were only 11 studies which have been done in rural context in developing countries, which is nearly half of the world's population. So there is a big scientific gap in regard to our understanding how rural populations interact with social robots. So does it matter? So UN's sustainable development goals are also focusing on bridging the digital divide, making technology more accessible to people, to everyone on the globe, rather than a privileged few in developed countries. In order for us to build a digitally sustainable society, we as researchers should also look at the communities which are not being involved in technology development in regard to social robots. So I'm going to present two use cases where I have carried out human robot interaction in developing countries, which will give you some context and the potential impact social robots can make on these kind of populations. So the first use case is about a robot which could carry water for rural populations. So this is in regard to a very challenging problem in developing countries, which is more than half of the population don't have access to tap water at home, and women mostly need to walk long distances to fetch and carry water to meet their daily needs. Also, young girl children who are predominantly involved in this activity don't get an opportunity to go to the school. So it is a big problem in developing countries where they don't have access to tap water at home. So we wanted to investigate if a social robot can help, and what would be the social perception about this robot, and how would the populations, these participants, would see the technology acceptance of this robot. So the study was carried out in collaboration with Amrita University in India, and the research was, my visit was funded by the Scottish Informatics and Computer Science Alliance. So the study was carried out in 2017, where in a small rural village in the south part of India, with approximately 25 households and um, 200 inhabitants. And the water source, the water supply, the main source of water supply was nearly 100 to 500 meters away from their house, depending on where the house was. And we recruited 11 participants. Mostly they were females, because they are the ones who are entrusted the job of carrying water for the house, for the daily needs. The youngest participant was 15 and the oldest was 70. And we used pre and post questionnaires for capturing the demographic information, and also used the technology acceptance model questionnaire from Davis. So we customized a robot, which was the Husky UGV, which was fitted with a crate, so it could carry up to 60 liters in one trip. And the robot was equipped with a Bluetooth speaker and text-to-speech capability, so the robot could deliver the instructions to the participants in their local language. And the robot was teleoperated by another researcher standing at a distance from the robot. And we also informed all the participants that the robot is being teleoperated. So the robot gave step-by-step instructions to the participants to use the robot to carry water to their house. So I'll just show you a video to give you a better idea. So the first So the first step was to fill the water cans with water and load the cans on the top of the robot. And the second step was the robot asking the participant to show the way to the house. And the robot would follow the participant to their house. We saw a lot of children following the robot everywhere, because they were very interested to see what's happening. So after the robot reached the participant's house, it would ask them to unload the water cans. And the robot would end the task with a hygiene message, asking the participants to make sure they wash their hands before eating. And the water fetching activity was repeated if the participant required more water to be brought to their home. So in the 7 days the robot was in the village, it provided water to all the 25 households, making more than 100 trips in total. So in regard to the response we got from the participants, so we asked the participants questions which captured their social perception about the robot, if they had any anxiety around the robot, the usefulness, the safety, the overall enjoyment, and if they understood the robot correctly when the robot was giving instructions. The questions were translated in their local language, and we had to capture the responses in simple yes or no, because most of the participants were illiterate, so they did not have any notion of Likert scales. So we wanted to capture their responses in a simple way they can answer the questions. So in regard to the social perception, the aliveness of the robot was mainly attributed to the movement of the robot. Some participants, 18% of the participants, were a little bit anxious at the start, because they had never seen anything like this before. And also the lack of sense of control also contributed to their anxiety. But most of the participants found the task of the robot was doing very useful, and also they enjoyed the overall interaction, and the other responses were also very positive in regard to the perception of the robot. We also believe that most of the responses were positive because the the villagers had the incentive not having to carry water for the day. So probably that is another reason why the responses were mostly positive. So in regard to the gender perception, we asked the participants what did they think the gender of the robot was and why they thought the gender of the robot was of a particular nature. So uh, more than a third of the participants who were female themselves um, said that it was a female. They perceived the robot as a female in spite having a male voice, mainly because of the strong cultural bias, cultural influence associated with the type of the task the robot was carrying out, which was water carrying, and this water carrying task is mainly done by women in the village. So it was a very interesting result that we saw in regard to the gender perception of the robot. We got a lot of media attention. Our research was reported by the BBC, the IEEE Spectrum, and various other online digital media agencies, which was very encouraging to see. So this brings me to the second use case, which we have, which we explored again in collaboration with Amrita University. So this is in context of a very important and right now very popular problem, which is hand washing because of COVID-19. So we carried out this research last year where in context of hand washing, where it's a big problem in developing countries where diarrhea and respiratory diseases kill more than 500,000 children every year. And a simple intervention like hand washing with soap can prevent 50% of these deaths and infections. Um, yeah, and because now, as I mentioned, because of COVID, is hand washing is considered one of the best line of defense. But we started to work in this area well before COVID. So hand washing education is also a very effective way to incorporate a good hand hygiene habits at a young age. But the important challenge is how to motivate children to wash their hands, and if social robots can help to influence their hand washing behavior. So we designed our own robotic platform, a low-cost robotic platform, which could be mounted on a wall next to a hand washing station. And the robots was designed like a hand-like shape, where which can be useful to elicit a symbolic meaning specific to the intervention itself, which was hand washing. The important thing here was the eyes of the robot were especially important because we wanted to enhance this Hawthorne effect, which suggests people change their behavior when they know they are being watched. So the iris of the eyes had the black area in the eye was more than 75% coverage to increase the perception of friendliness, but also increasing this perception that they are being watched. The robot had an animated mouth, and the robot was giving instructions to the pupils in their local language, and we used off the shelf and 3D printing to build the robot. So the study was carried out in March last year in a government primary school in a small village in the south part of India. And the school had 100 school children aged between 5 to 10. And the robot was operated. So the wizard had a live camera feed through two cameras where the robot was being controlled from another room. And the teachers in the school introduced a robot with a backstory, telling the pupils that we have a visitor in our school. Its name is Pepe and is here to deliver an important message. And we measured the hand washing activity before, during, and after the intervention. I will be discussing more about this in the result section. And the questionnaires to capture the social perception about the robot. So the robot was being teleoperated by another wizard. So for example, when the children were approaching the hand washing area, it would ask them if they have washed their hands before. And during the hand washing activity, it would prompt them to follow the 6 steps of hand washing, and also provide this positive reinforcement of giving a positive affective feedback when when the children wash their hands effectively. So I'll show you a video. So we observed the hand washing activity before, during, and after the intervention. So basically, using a top camera, we annotated the videos how well children wash their hands and how many steps out of the 6 steps of hand washing they carried out before, during, and after the intervention. And we saw that there was a 40% improvement on hand hygiene compliance in regard to how well they washed their hands and if they followed the 6 steps of hand washing. Also during critical times, that is before having a meal and after using the latrine, there was also a 5 time increase in the mean time of how much time they spend near the hand washing station while washing their hands before and during the intervention, which sustained 6 days after the robot was removed. So this was very encouraging for us to see that the hand washing activity, the quality of hand washing sustained even after a few days after the robot was removed. In regard to the social perception, we interviewed 45 children to capture the perception about what they thought Pepe is and if they would like to see the robot again, if they what they thought was the age and the gender of the robot and their exposure to technology. So what we saw is 25% of the pupils said identified it as a robot. The rest called it as a hand, or they don't know what the device is. 97% would like to see the robot again. Most of the pupils also liked the robot very much. In regard to the gender perception, the boys, 91% of the boys thought it was a male, while 57% of the girls thought it was a female. And mainly because of the voice and the appearance of the robot as the main reason. I forgot to mention one thing, that when we modeled the voice of the robot, it was made gender neutral, so there was no gender specific voice used on the robot during the intervention. Most of the participants also thought the robot was younger than them, while the other thought it was older. 72% thought the robot was alive, referring to its ability to talk as the main reason. 74% of the pupils had seen smartphones before, but nobody had used smartphones, and none had interacted with robots before. So in regard to the limitations of the study, it was a short-term intervention, which was only for a couple of days. So obviously the novelty effect might have an influence over how over their hand washing activity if we do a long-term trial. So future research will investigate that. But there is a good potential for cost-effective social robots to be agents of behavior change, especially in healthcare context. The future work will be focusing on developing the autonomous technology and carrying out more long-term trials. We have received a funding from the IEEE RAS site to conduct school trials in rural schools in India later this year. So we will be investigating the novelty effects by carrying out more long-term trials as a part of that research. We also got a lot of media attention. So BBC reported our news, and we also won an award last year at the Roman conference as the best demo. And our research was also reported by other media agencies, which was very encouraging for us to see. So in summary, there are a lot of challenges to do human robot interaction with with rural subjects in developing countries. For example, recruiting participants was a big challenge for us because of the cultural differences. So, for example, like the water carrying robot task, we had problems interacting with female participants from the village. So they were very reluctant to engage with any of our researchers. So we had to recruit another female researcher to help us to break the ice and ease the flow of communication. Also, the questionnaires had to be simplified because of the low literacy rates, and the questions had to be made translated in the local language. So, standard questionnaires which are used in human robot interaction research may not be the best way to engage with these participants. There are huge logistical challenges as well, where the robots need to be carried over to the remote location, so where you don't have access to electricity or even internet. So it's a big logistical challenge to carry out such research in these kind of environments. So I presented two human robot interaction pioneering studies with rural subjects in developing countries, which with different user groups and different cultural contexts. But I hope this has convinced you that there is a good potential for creating a positive impact using social robots for the wider community rather than a privileged few in developed countries. So I hope it helps you to understand the potential here. So, just on a side note, we have rebranded the hand washing robot as Volvo, and we are working towards rolling this out as a social venture from University of Glasgow. So, anyone who would like to be involved or just be updated about the next development, we will be very happy to keep in touch. And please feel free to write me an email if you want to be involved in this project as well. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.